Welcome to a CNBC Africa special brought to you by the Africa AGRF, which is also known as the Africa Green Revolution Forum. Due to COVID-19, this year's summit will be held virtually, and we will be here to take you through the expectations and discussions from that summit. Now, this year's summit will run on the theme, Feed the Cities, Grow the Continent, leveraging urban food markets to achieve sustainable food systems in Africa. Now we have a special panel of guests to take us through the possible outcomes of the summit and also look at last year's deliverables and expectations from this year's conversations. As always, you can tweet us at CNBC Africa. You can tag me directly at The Real Quizera. And on the panel today, we have His Excellency Haile Mariam Desalegn, former Prime Minister of Ethiopia and Chair Agra Board and AGRF Partners Group. We also have Debisi Araba, the Managing Director of AGRF, and Jennifer Byrne, the Head of Partnerships, AGRA, and Coordinator of the Agribusiness. And the special guest who has also joined us is Rwanda's Minister for Agriculture and Animal Resources, Ms. Geraldine Mukeshimana. Thank you for joining us and thank you for making the time. I would like to start with you, Your Excellency. Now, I just want you to give us a little bit of context, or give us our viewers a little bit of context from last year, about the history of AGRF and why AGRF is important.
Yeah, thank you very much for having us today. I think this is our 10th anniversary of the African Green Revolution Forum. And this forum is a premier organization or forum in our continent. AGRA has been established, to transform and change the agricultural landscape in Africa, transforming smallholder farmers from a subsistence agriculture into a commercial and market-based agricultural production systems in our continent. That is the basis for all growth and development in many other regions, and we cannot be unique in this regard. But to me, our agriculture has to be transformed to bring about a modern economic system and growth in our continent. So I think that's why AGRA has been established, and AGRA is delivering on this by building the capacity of governments and other institutions. But basically, we have to deal with our smallholder farmers so that they produce and increase their productivity and modernize the agricultural system. I think there is a systemic binding constraints in Africa, and AGRA is helping to unlock those systemic binding constraints. And the main reason why AGRA is working as a catalytic organization is to help to unlock these bottlenecks, working with governments and with other stakeholders, including our partners, and also mainly working and helping the smallholder farmers. So I think basically that's what we are doing. But AGRF, AGRA is a secretariat for AGRF. This year, I think Rwanda has been selected as a permanent seat for our secretariat. And Rwanda has been selected simply because it is one of the 4 African countries who achieved a target which is set to ourselves by, our continental organization, African Union, and the Comprehensive Agricultural, Growth Program. We call it CADIP, and Malabo Declaration, which wants to end hunger by 2025. But in all the case, AGRA is one of the best situated and an organization that can help catalyze this transformation in agriculture.
Thank you, Excellency. Now, quickly moving on, Debisi, this year's summits and expectations were those that were set last year. But what should we expect from this year's AGRF?
Okay, thank you very much, Arnold. You really heard it all from our chair. Your Excellency, thank you for making the time, and thank you for making the trip to Kigali. Our chair is currently in the city of Kigali. Now, the focus, as you mentioned, Arnold, at the start of the show, the theme for this year's summit is Feed the Cities, Grow the Continent, leveraging urban food markets to achieve sustainable food systems in Africa. The focus this year, we came up with the theme late last year, so it even preceded the global pandemic that's overtaking the global economic productivity now. And we wanted to bring a sharp focus to how we can use market systems, but the agriculture sector in a broader context when we talk about food systems. So not just the production, but everything around the ecosystem of agriculture, all the way from production to distribution and consumption. But with the focus on cities, looking at how we have these growth poles across the continent, rapidly urbanizing populations, and how we can take advantage of these rapidly urbanizing populations to stimulate the wider agriculture and food sectors. So this year's AGRF Summit, we will have, of course, it takes place from the 8th to the 11th of September, next week, Tuesday to Friday. We will have thematic conversations along 4 key outcomes. The first is on resilience. The big thing is we really need to ensure that we're building resilient systems around agriculture and food systems. The second is looking at how agriculture and food systems deliver positive dividends for nutrition and health. The third is leveraging markets and trade to really kickstart or restart the engines of economies across the continent. With the pandemic, we've seen a lot of slowdown, not just within countries, but across the region and around the rest of the world. The agriculture sector is poised, to position itself as an engine of growth and economic stimulus. And finally, is food systems. In 2021, next year, we will have a major summit convened convened by the United Nations, the UN Food Systems Summit. The president of AGRA is the special envoy for the Food Systems Summit, and the AGRF is positioned to present an African position and an African contribution. We want to ensure that Africa's aspirations, Africa's contributions, Africa's hopes, Africa's ingenuity and innovations contribute to the conversations and discussions on how we reshape food systems to ensure that we deliver food that is accessible, affordable, safe, healthy, nutritious. Thank you very much, Arnold.
Thank you, Debisi. Now, I quickly want to bring Rwanda's Minister of Agriculture and Animal Resources for coming to this conversation. Now, we want to talk terms of policy and what we expect from that. What should be the expectations from the political side of things in regards to this summit?
Yeah, thank you. I think the political side that we always look for is how do we bring everyone at the table to make sure that these food issues are worked to the best of everyone. So this year we are looking at, we are kind of pausing to look at how the fast growing urban population of Africa will sustainably be fed, because we mostly struggle to all the time say that agriculture is performing or not performing, but we forget the side that Africa is urbanizing very quickly. And most of the time, as I think we have seen it during the COVID-19 time when everything was locking down, we have some section of the urban population that we need to think of, because these people, they spend almost 80% of their income on food. So how do we make sure that these people are also included into what is taking place, instead of looking at food security and in one way? So it's really important that all of us, we get mobilized around increasing food on the continent, looking ahead at where we are going as Africans, but looking also ahead, how are we going to sustain our lives? Because when you think of it, Food define everything. Food define livelihoods. Food define cities. Food define everything. So it's really important that we think in a comprehensive way. What does it mean, our populations? What does it mean, our cities? And what does it mean, our lives? Because without food, I think everything is gone.
What I'm getting from you, Madam Minister, there is talking about sustainability, and we're going to come back to that. Now, we've also been joined by Jennifer Barn, the head of partnerships at AGRA and coordinator of the Agribusiness Deal Room at AGRF. Now, Jennifer, something has happened, something has been in the works in the past few months or the past year in regards to AGRF, and that has been the creation of an agribusiness SMEs matchmaking platform. Please expound on what this entails.
Yes, absolutely. And, it has already been said, the AGRF is really the core and the premium platform where the development of the agriculture sector and the vision is being explored by a wide range of stakeholders. The deal room really brings the issue of investments and how we're going to raise capital for this agriculture transformation to the heart of the AGRF. The deal room is really an ecosystem convening. It's not just SMEs who are coming to the deal room to seek access to capital with either private equity investors or your traditional financial lenders, but they're also seeking new partnerships, new trade deals with anchor buyers, and new opportunities for growth and networking as well. We're also bringing 15 of our core governments in Africa that we work with as AGRA, and also many of our partners work with. They will also be sharing investment opportunities, and they will also be engaging with investors to talk about bottlenecks, etc. And we're bringing anchor buyers who are looking for trade deals, who are looking for partners to increase and strengthen their sourcing from smallholder farmers. So the deal room, it's a matchmaking effort to really bring together the ecosystem to do a couple of things. One, to make the opportunities for investments visible. We often hear from many of the capital providers that where is the pipeline? Where are the bankable deals? And not only where are the bankable deals, how do we make some of these investment opportunities inclusive so that we can engage with smallholder farmers, so that we can ensure that also women farmers and women along the value chain can benefit, and that we also create jobs for our youth. Where are these deals? So we are making many of these deals visible, but we're also showcasing what is required to really make them happen. And that is often partnerships. That often requires a wide range of actors who will rally around all of these transactions to make sure that they happen and that they're inclusive. So the deal room is really about identifying these opportunities, matching them to critical actors in the landscape, and also monitoring them after the AGRF to make sure that they happen. At this point in time, though, 1,200 people signed up in the agribusiness deal room already. And they are engaging with each other. They're ramping up to have bilateral meetings, to have knowledge sessions, to have deep dives, to have country presentations next week. It's going to be literally a festival of agribusiness opportunities, even amidst the pandemic and some of the challenges that it has brought forward in terms of risk for the sector, but also the need to look for more sustainable opportunities. So that really, in a nutshell, I think is what the agribusiness deal room is about.
Jennifer, I want to stay with you just right there. Many forget that agriculture, just like manufacturing, construction, all these other sectors that contribute to the GDPs of our various African countries, are very capital intensive. Now, capital is still a challenge. How and what is the plan to solve the capital challenge?
I think if there was one silver bullet, we would all be doing it, right? So I think it's not just about looking for that one solution. I think in the past 5 to 10 years, we've really seen a strong shift towards a focus on more private sector engagement. That the private sector, from micro SMEs being the interface with smallholder farmers and selling input, seeds, and other type of products, to financial institutions, to processors, that they really have to be in the driving seats of making that agriculture transformation happen. But there are quite a number of challenges, and access to capital is only but one of them. And it's often quite interrelated to so many other challenges that there are there as well in the enabling environment. Not necessarily all the right policies being there, but the implementation of policies as well, and the right incentives for businesses to grow, become profitable, and become inclusive and linked to value chains. We have challenges with the appropriate inputs reaching our farmers. So the question of capital is often a result of multiple issues in the enabling environment that are not working and basically are impacting the ability of our companies to be profitable, to be an attractive industry to invest in, and therefore be able to attract capital. And that's why I also think that it's very important to pull that conversation broader and really engage with the entire ecosystem to see if we have these opportunities, what needs to happen across the value chain and in that enabling environment to really land these. And that has partly to do also with innovative finance models. How can we provide access to finance to women? There will be a wide range of people talking about it. If we want to build a profitable poultry industry and have access to capital, there are things that need to happen all the way from the broiler industry, animal feed industry, all the way to retail to make that entire value chain attractive for our banks and our investors to come into play. What are all these different interventions that are required? Who's doing them along the continent, and how can we work better? So that would actually be my answer to what are some of the solutions. It's really an ecosystem approach, and you will hear that term in the coming years quite sometimes.
I want to bring Your Excellency back into the conversation now. Food security, and possibly cite an example of Ethiopia, which had food insecurity in the past. But food security on the continent is still a major challenge. Now, this has been amplified as well by the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, how far has this pushed us back from solving the challenge of food insecurity across various African countries?
Thank you again. I was muted. And first of all, the food security issue is a very important issue that we have to address in our continent. If you take some statistics, that 670 million Africans are already facing food insecurity, of which half of them are severely food insecure. So I think we need to do something about it. And now COVID-19 has arrived on the heels of existing crisis, and drought, flood, locusts, and all kinds of emergencies are creating and exacerbating this problem of food insecurity. And I think this is a very essential issue that has to be discussed and resolved about it. I think we need to, first of all, experience also shows my country, has been a poster child case as far as food insecurity is concerned because of the climate situation and drought, sometimes heavy flood coming in. That has created a lots of problems. But we have tried to settle this issue. First of all, governments has to take initiative to invest in agriculture. This is the major issue that has to come. Even our continent, through the CADI program, has designed to have every country should invest at least 10% of its annual budget on agriculture. If you don't do this, I think you cannot tackle the food insecurity problem. And next, we have to improve our coordination. This is a very essential element as far as working on food insecurity, because there is huge coordination problem in our continent. There are many actors in agriculture, and there are many partners to governments and people in agricultural production and the system. But there is lack of coordination, and we need to address this lack of coordination. And if you take AGRA as an institution, a continental institution, we are trying to address this gap, bringing partners together and having a forum of partners. We call it PIATA, that helps in a certain country to coordinate this issue. But governments has to be at the driving seat in the coordination process. and that helps to work very well in this regard. To me, again, sharing knowledge, experience, and transferring best practices from one African country to the other is an important aspect. We have been able to transfer this not even from African countries, but in Ethiopia, we try to transfer knowledge from China, from India, from other countries who have tried to pass through food insecurity in their own countries and who try to address this issue effectively. So I think practices are very important. So we need to share knowledge and best practices, and that's one of the issues. We have to encourage and promote joint research, and individual separate efforts should come together. CGRI is trying to do this, and Ethiopia has benefited very much from these kind of coordinated efforts. I think this is very important. In the continent, we have some countries like Kenya. For example, the Kenyan government, its response to the pandemic as well as to the food insecurity in Kenya has been remarkable. They have the so-called Kenya War Room, where they were acting together to resolve this issue like it is a war, an emergency. So there is a command post working on this regard. So we have best practices in our continent to work on food security issue. So I think this is the most important agenda, and we need to come together, work very hard. I think this year AGRF can also help us to bring this kind of knowledge and best practices from elsewhere, and then we can learn from each other to address this emergency situation, because COVID has shown us that Africa should be very cautious in its future development endeavors, because we cannot rely on somewhere else for saving us from food insecurity. We need to, mobilize our own resources. In Africa, we have wasted resources everywhere. We have to avoid that wastage and bring about a coordinated efforts to mobilize our domestic resources, and also have a very clever way of doing some kind of safety net. We have a productive safety net program, which is one designed to resolve and help smallholder farmers to come out of this problem. This is also complicated by climate change, and we have to address to have a clear adaptation program. Ethiopia has, climate resilient green growth strategy, which encompasses this problem also. So now, after some 20 years of effort, Ethiopia has become full self-sufficient at the country level. But we have to work at household level, how to make our farmers and our, even in the cities, this year's agenda for AGRF focuses on cities. We have food insecurity in cities. And we used to have productive safety net for rural areas, but we shifted this with that experience to cities, big cities in Ethiopia, to have a productive safety net program for those low income and below poverty line people in the cities. So I think we need to address this problem of food insecurity in our continent, and we are to the task.
Thank you very much there, Your Excellency. Now bring back a minister there. And Minister, just you have 1 minute and with your parting shots. Is it realistic to assume that we can create or develop resilient networks for sustainable food production within this decade? Minister, a minute, please.
Yeah, I think it's, we have been looking back, and we see so many things pulling us back from the achievements that we have made over the decade. But still, it depends on us, and it depends on how we approach the food security issues. Yes, we still have 10 years to end hunger, and again, all of these initiatives that are taking place are there to support everyone to get to the food security. Anyway, when we think of food security, it's important to look at it in a bigger context. It doesn't mean necessarily that someone has to have his own produced food, but it's important that people get, I mean, the food is available, people have means to access to it. And again, if the human being public, private sector, SMEs, all of us, we are working together to remove barriers that affect the food production and distribution, as where, as His Excellency has mentioned. I mean, even in Africa, we still have a huge amount of food that is wasted, that is lost. So we may think that the food is not there, but there are many ways that we can organize us to make sure that the food can be there for everyone. So to me, I still believe that there is a way to get there.
Debbie, bring you back into the conversation, and in your closing remarks, how do you think, how useful do you think public-private partnerships are in ensuring that they solve the issues around food and agriculture on the continent?
Thank you very much, Arnold. That's at the heart of agriculture transformation, and we are all partners for prosperity. When we talk of agriculture transformation, what we're saying is we want a public sector enabled, private sector led process. And so we need everyone. We need the governments, we need private sector, we need the civil society organizations. When we talk about private sector, of course, we're talking about private sector all the way from smallholder farmers to the large scale commercial. Everybody is involved in this prosperity narrative. Everyone is a member of Africa's prosperity and Africa's future. And so when we talk of why the AGRF is important, of course, it's the largest gathering of its kind on agriculture in the world, not just on Africa, but in the world. It's the largest gathering of its kind. We currently have 5,000 delegates who have registered for this year's summit. We expect to bring on all the partners, every single person. We're funded, of course, by a group of 26 partners who provide resources in cash and kind to ensure that we bring together all nations and economies across the continent and everyone else that we work with and trade with around the world to ensure that not just that Africa can feed itself, but Africa feeds the world. That is our mandate. The bar is not at just getting Africa to feed itself. It's to ensure that Africa becomes prosperous and plays its role in the global economy as an economic powerhouse in agriculture. And so we welcome everybody to register on the website. It's www.agrf.org. Register for the summit, register to participate in the deal room if you're an SME seeking for funding, or if you're a financial services provider looking to fund projects. There will be lots of deals there. Or if you're curious about food, if you're just at home and you think, where does your food come from and what are the issues? What's the politics around your food? We encourage you to register, join the AGRF. I think there's something for everybody, regardless of your level of knowledge, technical expertise, etc. Because food, of course, connects us all. We all eat food to survive. And so we encourage you to register to understand where your food comes from, what's the issue with food and agriculture in Africa, and how you can play your role. Thank you very much, Arnold.
Your Excellency, in your parting remarks, you were part of the initial conversation around the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement that is coming into play this December. Now, how can agribusinesses, African countries that have been importing, one of the largest import bills for food in the world is among sub-Saharan African countries. How can they work together and take advantage of AFCFTA to ensure that there is food sustainability on the continent?
Thank you very much. I think our problem was, as I said, a coordination problem, and the African Continental Free Trade Area helps us to coordinate our efforts in terms of free trade within the continent. Our colonial legacy was that all our ports are designed, all our infrastructure were designed towards exporting our produce to our colonizers there. And that has changed now. And African countries, they are trying to connect with each other and through infrastructure and now using digital platforms that can help expedite trade and exchange of information, which is very essential. And I think with African Continental Free Trade Area, our smallholder farmers will benefit because the whole idea of transforming agriculture is to make it commercialized, and we should have a surplus, that tradable surplus within the production system. And our smallholder farmer has to sell its produce by a price which is competitive. So I think the African Continental Free Trade Area can use this opportunity to have a linkage in trading agricultural produce from our smallholder farmers. But this needs a systemic addressing systemic problems, and we need to connect our farmers from farming gate up to the international market within the continent. So I think this is what we call the food system, and not only production, but also marketing and also producing quality food that is for nutrition. So all this will be addressed in our AGRF this year. And the African Continental Free Trade Area is a huge opportunity and benefit to our smallholder farmers and the whole agricultural sector. So if you see some examples, for example, Nigeria has been importing all its rice from outside, but now Nigeria has become self-sufficient in the production system, but that's not enough. The whole West Africa is trying to export their rice production, and the huge market in the continent can utilize the African Free Trade Area at this moment. So rather than bringing that huge amount of food, which is a very difficult consignment from Asia, they can utilize within Africa this free trade area provision. So I think we are the most important achievement of our continental organization is having 55 countries signing the African Free Trade Area agreement. I would like to thank the President of Rwanda, President Paul Kagame, during his term and his tenure as a chair of the African Union, that the AfCFTA has been agreed upon and signed. And I think one of the main decisions this organization has done is this African Free Trade, Continental Free Trade Area decision. So we'll have more than, I think, 2.5 billion people involved in this trading. And this is a huge, I think, engagement. And it has begun, but there are a number of issues that has to be addressed. This is only a beginning. We have to make it work as quickly as possible. And this is a good opportunity for our country.
Minister, in your parting remarks, we've seen agreements signed at previous AGRF forums, but operationalization of those has taken a little bit longer than we expected. When should we expect that the agreements from this year's summit will come into play? When do we expect you to lead the way in walking that talk?
Yeah, there are so many things that happen in during the summit, but it's up to individual countries and individual companies to follow up. So I can now say that some of them did not materialize because some of us institutions that are associated with us has been getting these commitments to become true. So I think it's important to look at it in a bigger context because someone mentioned about the deal rooms. So during that deal room, so many things happen, and the follow-up that takes place continue to happen. For instance, if I give you an example, last year and previous years we have been working with some companies, even the organizations, for instance, on developing horticultural commodities in Rwanda, exporting them, developing green fields of tea plantations. So it depends on how well you follow up and how you attract the investments, how the government has been improving its investment climate, and the follow through that takes place. So I cannot tell you that it did not happen. So much happens during those platforms.
And Jennifer, in your parting remarks, there's the challenge of bringing together the various SMEs in this agribusiness deal room. How fast should we expect some form of movement and collaboration across all boards?
So that's very interesting, and I actually would like to build upon what the Honorable Minister was saying. The AGRF has grown beyond being an event, and so has the deal room. It's a year-long effort of various partners who in different ways are working on transforming our agriculture sector. So if I just look at the deal room, how it actually emerged and was incubated, actually by the Rwandan government, who invited the AGRF 3 years ago to say, can we explore this deal room? And we started literally with just 18 investors and a few companies from Rwanda. And it has now grown into a deal room that brings together $2 billion of capital needs that basically is looking for investors and partners, etc. And in between the events, we do work with our governments, with our countries, with our SMEs to actually monitor what is happening, where the bottlenecks are, how we can address them. And I can say it's really partly also because of COVID, but we do expect that there are some transactions that will be closed out of the previous deal rooms in the months to come. So from our perspective, the matchmaking is often just the beginning of a journey. We are committed together with our partners. We have over 20 partners who are making the deal room happen. We are committed to make it a catalytic effort that will travel across the continent and will convene regularly to push these transactions forwards and work with ministers like our Honorable Minister here to make sure that also on a country level we keep monitoring and bring this energy and momentum to a country level as well. So it is happening, but we have to be slightly patient. In a sense, it takes usually between 12 to 18 months for the quickest transaction to materialize. We're talking here about the agriculture sector, one of the riskiest actually in the world in terms of investments and also in a challenging environment. So it does have a bit of a longer traction before we can see what is happening. But even amidst COVID, I'm saying it again, we are having at least 1,200 people next week engaging with each other, talking about how they can drive investments in African agriculture. That in itself is a win and is a strong message to the rest of the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer, and thank you guys for making the time. This was a conversation brought to you by the Africa Green Revolution Forum, and our guest panelists today were His Excellence Haile Mariam Desalegn, the former Prime Minister of Ethiopia and Chair Agra Board, and AGRF Partners Group. We also had Debisi Araba, the Managing Director, AGRF, we also had Jennifer Byrne, the Head of Partnerships, AGRA, and Coordinator of the Agribusiness Deal Room at the AGRF, and Rwanda's Minister for Agriculture and Animal Resources, Madame Geraldine Mukeshimana. Thank you for watching. Have a great rest of your day.